10x your service design offering with Smaply. Take 20% off any order with This Is HCD 20 off. Let's superpower you and your design team's potential. Sign up at smaply.app. Enjoy the episode from your friends at Smaply, helping support This Is HCD podcast.
Hello and welcome to Bringing Design Closer. Our goal is to have conversations that inspire and help move the dial forward for organisations to become more human-centred in their approach to solving complex business and societal problems. Can you believe it? This Is HCD is almost 5 years old, folks, and we've been creating content regularly for that period of time. Now, if you really want to help us out, please leave a review for us and wherever it is you're listening. Those lovely algorithms love those reviews and it helps us grow our community. Every little helps, and even if you don't go and leave a review, you can go one better by telling the people that you work with or are friends with about the podcast. Now, in this episode, I speak with Emely Buyck, former head of service design for Proximus in Belgium. We speak about the evolution of service design internally in Proximus, the pitfalls and the pieces that worked for Emely and the team in there. We chat about life after Proximus and where to next, and how they're applying service design approaches to their own life and career. It's a fun episode, and I think you'll enjoy it. Let's jump straight in. Emely, brilliant to have you here on Bringing Design Closer. I'm delighted to have you here. Maybe just start off. Tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from and what you do.
Hi, Gerry. Yeah, I'm very delighted to be there. Kind of my first podcast here. Well, I'm talking to you from Belgium, the wonderful city of Ghent. I used to be head of service design at Proximus, which is the incumbent telco operator. But now I'm actually living and enjoying a career break and thinking what I'm going to do with the rest of my life.
Well, that sounds exciting. I think most of the world at this stage is probably kind of going, what does the future look like after the last couple of years of, difficulty and hell of being isolated in our houses and stuff. But let's start talking, because when you were at Proximus, there was an incredible transition that happened over maybe 15 years in the organization that we're going to be focusing our conversation on today. And we'll come back to a little bit more around where you're at in your own life and, what you're taking probably from the designer's mindset and how you're redesigning your life, so forth. But one thing that I did notice when I was, researching for the podcast was that there was kind of a linear line that went through the design maturity, I guess, in Proximus. And I'd love to tap into that a little bit more if you're open to it. So maybe start off, tell us what your where design started to enter the strategic conversation in Proximus.
Yeah, with great pleasure, because that linear line, I also walked on it personally. So I think we lived it together, maybe.
Tripped on it probably as well.
Tripped on it, yeah. So yeah, as you can see on my LinkedIn now, right, I worked for 16 years at this wonderful company, and I started out as a management trainee, actually figuring out what I was going to love most at working at a big company. Right, I started in the consumer business unit. I've always been in the consumer business unit. Started more in sales and marketing functions, exploring that, loving it, and then the most intense period for me was when I entered the product and solutions department, where I started working as a portfolio manager on the mobile products. We had a huge disruption in the market, and I started, that was the first actually role I was really involved in some kind of product design, to say it as such, right? We created the value proposition, the pricing, competitive analysis, etc. And I did such a great job that I could stay and take on even the team, where we didn't only manage the portfolio manager, but also the product managers that then defined what the product should look like, etc. And then I kept on evolving, as it's a company where you can evolve yourself and switch jobs easily and learn and get coached and managed. I switched more to the marketing side of things, where I went more into what we called at that time marketing design, we were quite marketing led, to say it as such. It was really a focus of our CEO to bring the customer in already at that part. It was really like in the middle of my career. And they were like, yeah, we need to bring the customer more in. How can we do it? A big focus on customer research and really putting the marketeers at the heart and the core of the activities. And then marketing design was like a really big word of we have to create great value propositions that start with the customer and do a lot more and even more we always had done. There's a central market intelligence department. How can we create even more powerful value propositions? And there I got in touch with the craft of creating value propositions.
Okay.
After knowing how to create portfolios, pricings, and more the analytical and financial part of things. And then after
pre-service pieces, as we'd probably refer to them as.
And the analytical and like more business design, if you can call it as such. So I went from business to like marketing, value proposition design.
Okay. Can I just ask you in that world there, like in the marketing design world, what were your objectives from a business perspective when you were in the marketing design world? Because you talk about having amazing value propositions. What were the goals from the organization at that stage?
Well, to keep on attracting customers, new customers, retaining existing customers, and like staying performant in the market, right? Because as we were the incumbent, the dominant player, you already have a lot of customers. How can you keep on gaining them? And we were attacked by other brands, of course, that all wanted a piece of the market. How can we keep on evolving and innovating? Because our products were quite perceived as hygienics, right? How can we keep on innovating so that our customers, they chose for us for quality and all the things that our brand stood for? How can we keep on innovating and adding extra value for them and going beyond the pure telco? So it was about retaining customers, gaining new ones, and creating extra value and really dazzling them at another level.
At that stage, when you were called a marketing design role, I guess, for want of a better word, was service design a conversation that was already had at that stage? Because that was probably 2016, 2017, in those years. Where was service design in the conversation?
Not with those terms. I would say that the term service design was really absent, but it was more called design thinking. At a certain point, it was even before that, when design thinking started hyping all over the world. We were always in contact across the ocean, also what's happening in the United States, etc. We dove in as a company on what is design thinking and how can it help us in that will to become more customer centric. And so we got help from consultants on how can we train like everyone almost in the company on design thinking, the mindset, the process. I don't like to call it a process, but it is a process in some kind of way. And so we started building this community, but it got born on a corporate level, where people on a voluntary basis could get kind of certified as a design thinking ambassador. And then those people were put into projects like, we're going to help you be more user-centric thanks to the design thinking mindset and the processes. And it really helped. It was like, the first tangible part where service design, even if we didn't call it like that, got integrated into company and introduced. And where people started seeing the power of iterating and talking to customers. We did, but regularly what we did was like at the start of a project, the exploratory phase, do research, and then before we're going to launch, do it again, but not enough in between, and that was the first shift, like, we should do it more regularly. How can we improve? Because if you only measure at the end, then you're in front of launching. Well, that's a bit difficult to then still pivot.
Absolutely. Well, when we were chatting earlier, we talked about the restructuring and the reorg of, rethinking how the organization works to produce services. Where did that happen in the life journey of where service design entered the organization? Was that something that happened in around that time you're doing the marketing design? Because in my experience, it tends to happen like you might work in one of those roles and you're like, actually, there's more to this than just creating a value proposition. We need to think holistically, like.
What I didn't tell you, Gerry, is that next to the marketing design team, there was also a customer journey design team.
Okay. At the same time?
At the same time, even on 2 levels. Within the marketing department, there was a customer journey team who was like working in tandem with everyone who was creating the value propositions to think about what will the customer journey look like, what will the experience be, and how can we holistically look at it, not only from the technicalities, but throughout our touch points. And that was already ongoing as well. And even on a corporate level, there was a customer experience department being set up that looked at what we called the macro customer journeys. Like, what are the big
sub-journeys?
What are the big moments in the life of a telco customer that are really important to score on, becoming a new customer, for instance. So it's agnostically from the products and the value propositions, but more in terms of the phase and the life cycle of the customer. And those teams were also being built in like, you're responsible for becoming a new customer journey, measuring its performance, improving it, being data analytic, etc. So I would say it was an organic journey. There was a huge focus from the top, like we have to be customer centric. Then there were initiatives all over popping up to kind of do it. But even then, the term service design wasn't born yet. And then afterwards, we got into a huge ambition of becoming better in digital as a telco. And then I got the opportunity to shift jobs and to head a team that was called Digital Journey Redesign, that team of journey designers got transformed into having more of a digital focus and improving very tactically key digital journeys to improve the conversion and the experience, but really with a tactical mindset of how can we improve fast our digital performance.
So when you were thinking like that, Emily, like there was probably other dependencies within the organization that would have been required to have been reintroduced into the organization, like how user experience interrelates with service design, how even business analysts or product management. So I know from service design perspective, we love to talk about, and then we did some evaluation on the current state, and then we did some prototyping. But like, and I know an awful lot of this is, reliant on so many other parts of the organization to come together. Totally. What were the challenges from, if you can bring your mind back at that stage, because you're starting to open up a can of worms in an organization where you're saying, well, we're going to have to restructure parts of the teams. I need access to some of these skills in order to make this happen. Can you remember what those biggest challenges were?
Yeah, because then at that point, I was starting to get spaghettis in my head as well, because I had seen all these different roles. I in the meantime, I knew the company inside out, how it worked. I knew which buttons to push and how to send out people to get their results. But then I was in a leadership role, and I remember our VP of Human Capital saying, yeah, Emily, but you have to think about how we can further improve. And I started really doing that. And the challenges are, of course, that you are talking about people's jobs. People are responsible for something. And if all of a sudden someone comes and say, we can do it differently or better, even if your intent is good.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it feels like an attack, but it's only human to feel like that, right?
You're doing a bad job. You're not working well.
And that's not what you're saying, but it's like, we can do better. And you're enthusiastic, but those other people have been doing their jobs for years in a good way. And then you have to find ways to start a dialogue like, don't you think we can do better? And can you help me in doing that? That was for me the biggest challenge.
You're asking people to, but you're asking people to change something that's really intrinsic and to move from a safe state of mind into an unsafe state of mind, to move out of that consciousness into the uncertainty. And for me, when you read an awful lot of service design books or listen to service design podcasts, it's not given enough credence the fact that living with this level of discomfort at that stage, you refer to it as spaghetti in your head. And I love that. I think it's a really nice visual of what it's like, where you're like, I know the method, I know what's meant to happen, But when I go into work on a Monday and I have to spend 4 hours going through an inbox of emails, and then I get an hour to focus on it, I'm really interested in what it looked like at that stage. Would you be able to paint a picture so people can get a good snapshot of the reality of what happens at this stage?
You mean in terms of how we worked and the different roles we had that contributed?
How you got people to do things. Like, there was obviously, when I say obviously, there's an assumption there, conversations at the executive level about, hey, we need to rethink something bigger than just giving us a couple of resources. We need to look at how we function as a unit, as one.
Yeah, totally. And discussions were already going on, or pilots at the time when we were working on digital transformation. We were also piloting agile ways of working, not only in development, but really in the business teams, even the marketing teams, let's say, creating a value proposition. How can you do that in an agile way? In a multidisciplinary team with the right roles and the right profiles around the table. So I would have to say it wasn't really a fight. It was a really organic evolution where everyone saw that we could still improve. And we didn't have to have a large fight. And then we reorganized again, and everyone organically felt, we have a little bit too much roles involved in the product design process. And we had portfolio managers, product managers, marketing designers, and then we had the UX people on the other side, and the customer journey designers, and then the macro customer journey designers. And we started to naturally re-streamline. And as I was involved in the discussions, and I started studying myself, reading your wonderful book of This is Service Design Doing, among others.
Not my book, but Mark, Adam, and Marcus.
Mark and Adam.
And Jacob.
It was really a true source for me. But not only, I started reading like crazy on how can we make it more concrete for our company. It's a personal track. Setting up a design department, it's like you have to look at what's your design maturity as a company. How does your process look like? So I really, for myself, started to look at, and we had these discussions as we were talking about agile, like, how is our process looking like of product design? Who is contributing to it? Do people have enough responsibility? Do they feel accomplished enough? Where are the friction points? And then voila, I just personally came up with a model where we went for a partial competence center on business and service design, what we called it as such, where we kind of merged the role of portfolio managers, a role that I used to do, marketing designers, a role that I used to do, and the customer journey designers, the digital journey redesigners, and we rebaptized them and like, guys, together you're going to accomplish the role of business and service design. And this means creating value propositions, including the end-to-end customer experience that value proposition will have. And then we started to look at design more holistically, like it doesn't stop at business and service design. We need the digital designers, the UX designers, the content designers, the UI designers to join the conversation. I don't know if you've seen the report, Gerry, of McKinsey Digital that they recently published on design orgs. And I was so happy to see that what I felt and what we did was really well articulated in that report with hard numbers behind it and great research where they said, like, it's really important that the business side, and I'll call it here the business and service designers, learn more about digital design and what does it take to be performant in digital, but also the other way around. Digital designers, UX designers are great craftsmen, but it's really valuable for them also to understand the craft of business and service designing, getting closer, joining the discussion from the beginning, because it wasn't always the case. They were in the past only asked to do the digital design of the value proposition, and like bringing those two worlds together and looking at design holistically even ended in the setup of a whole design chapter that didn't only have business and service design, but also UX and UI design and content design in it.
Absolutely. It's interesting, but I want to ask you a little bit more around the shift in mindset, because telcos historically have been great at creating standalone products that sit within the broader service ecosystem. And the shift from moving from a product-centric view into a service-level view is something that organizations at that scale find difficult. So what was that like? And also, was this blue sky or green fields? Was it a case of thinking from a reductive mindset and identifying the areas within the product centric view of the organization? Were they stripping those things out, or were they just creating a whole new blue sky system?
I think I would say you have a little bit of both, because it stays a large organization and I worked in one business unit. So you still had people that were more product centric and others that were more service centric. We had a combination of both, and I can only say it was a very organic journey, and that you had a hardcore of believers that started to evangelize the things towards others, and then just instead of talking about it, just proving the value, made as such that you got a kind of oil stain that is enlarging in the organization. So I think you still have a little bit of both, because it's a large organization, but it was like a combination. What a word is that?
Combination is a great word, though. Oxford. I want to call Oxford. Can we get a new one into the dictionary, please?
It was a combination of, I would say, a bottom-up movement, but also a top-down passion of, guys, we need to do better, we need to innovate if we want to keep on existing. So I think it's passion that drove a lot of people and change, and not everyone was on board, but great things were, and I would say are, happening. I don't know if that answers your question, Gerry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, and I agree. It probably is a little bit of both that needs to happen. Like, but typically organizations are really great at coming up with a new shiny thing, and then they end up servicing both worlds. And I'm like, hey, it's one and the same. Like, what were the main challenges from a business perspective? What were the areas of concern, if you can bring your mind back to that stage where you were moving into the role of, I think your title at that stage was Head of Digital Journey Redesign. So then you moved into the Head of Business and Service Design. So what were the pieces that the executives and even the bottom up were asking the questions? Where was the hesitancy? What were the pieces that they were most kind of concerned about at that stage?
I think there was a fundamental belief that we had to iterate more and talk to customers. But the most difficult thing that I lived was the deadlines and planification. It's really hard to plan for design, right? It's a messy process, and it's like, but when you're going to be finished with your first phase? It's a big company, so you need to plan, you need to organize your budgets, they have milestones, and that, for me, that was a big friction part of, if you want to give the liberty and the freedom to designers, you have to give them time, but they don't always have it. And you understand that you're in a business, you have to be performant, and sometimes you have to deliver stuff at a certain time. So it's a difficult balance.
It's hard
to find. It's really hard. And then you get into old habits, right? Then you get controlling, and we're just going to do this because, experience says this, and then you decide, and then people at the bottom get frustrated because like, if you just would give me a little bit more exploration time, we could do even better. So that was a balance to find.
The balance.
Yeah.
I was speaking to my doctor recently. This is going to be, it seems like a segue, but trust me, I'm going to bring it back around to relevancy in a second. And, I still think they don't know what I do for a living. When they I think they listen to the podcast as well, which is even funnier. But I said about timelines and deadlines and trying to get stuff done. They go, well, that's impossible. It's the same way as like when somebody comes into me and they're sick and I give them medication, which is what design effectively is trying to do in an organization. And they said, we can't give a deadline or a timeline on when you're going to heal. Every project and every, instance is different, and every person is different. So that's one of the pieces that a lot of organizations struggle with, is those hard deadlines. And that's not what Agile is about. It's like this kind of control framework where organizations sit and they're going to go, okay, it's 3-week sprints. You're going to have it done in 3 weeks. And then it puts all these added pressures on the designers and the development teams, and they crack. And
or like going back, if you get to a certain point, I remember a point where we did research and we had a really cool finding, but in the ideal world, you have to go back and to the drawing table. And that is really a hard thing to do if you have this pressure for commercial performance. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's hard. And then another one is, and that's why I was so happy with the McKinsey report, because business people love numbers. It's how do you prove
Do
the
they?
value? They do, and it's important.
You heard it here first, folks.
How do you prove the value of what you're doing? And sometimes I
Yeah.
get into fluffy conversations. I'm like, yeah, or design thinking sometimes has a bad name. Oh, it's just sticking post-its on the wall and things like that,
So how did you get around those conversations?
I try to find a balance between evangelizing, talking, and being passionate, because if you get a podium to do that and you have rapport and people hear you, and you have to like find supporters in the system that support for you. That's one thing, but you can't just keep on evangelizing and talking, right? Then the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And then, just still choosing your battles, and sometimes fight for a project and say, no, here we're going to go really, there we need more time. And if you choose the right one where you feel the pressure is maybe a bit lower, and then you really stand for and say, here we're going to take more time and see what it gives. And if they can then see what it actually gives, they just prove it by doing it instead of talking about it, I would say.
Was there any exercises in bringing the executives into the project in terms of getting their hands dirty a little bit more to feel the clay, so to speak, or were they just observers?
Yeah, they were mainly still observers. There was still a tendency and a willingness. What they did do was go out in the field and talk to customers or go to the shop. So that was really, again, I think the willingness is there and the mindset, but then really getting into the projects, no, that's something we didn't really do, to be honest.
From your perspective, when you were assumed the role of head of service design, was it was there other heads of UX and heads of design as well? Where do they report into?
Yes. So I reported in the marketing department because, as I said, we were really marketing led.
Yeah.
And then we had indeed a head of UX and digital studio that was reporting more into another, into the digital department, I would say.
Ah, okay. So what was the complexities around that? Because there's two resistance points there.
Yeah, because that department got put into place to, manage the digital platforms and the digital channels. And they had a kind of history and identity and a core mission of bringing digital to life and to a certain performance. But then at a certain point, digital gets important for everyone, right? Even for marketeers. Yeah. And then we kind of outgrew, I guess, that structure. But there also organically it disappeared. And then with the reorgs, that got tackled and joined together. But indeed, it's like we said, for people that have a certain job, that do it with a lot of passion and acumen and knowledge, also a change process that they had to go through. If someone comes and knock on your door, I think we can do even better. That's not always easy, of course.
So from your time at Proximus, what were the pieces that you look back on as being your biggest achievements?
For me, it's really setting up that design department and redesigning the way we do design, bringing in human-centric design in a pragmatic way, I would say, losing the fluffiness and really, I had this flipping point in my career where, as I told you in the beginning, I was focused on mastering things and mastering jobs. And then it flipped towards, how can we change it, improve it? And also the humans became more and more important. And I realized that, without the people and their buy-in into the story, and if you're not able to build strong teams, you have nothing. You cannot just talk and evangelize, but you need the people also to do it with you and do it for you. I think that would be my biggest proud. Also, when I left the company, was the feedback on, you made such a difference for us in building strong teams. And at the same time, I found my passion in life of designing. It's really something that fits my character and my personality. So it's an achievement for the company of creating a design department, but for myself, it was an achievement of finding my passion and my skill and talent in life. for design, but also for people, because I was always focused a lot on my brain. And I thought, yeah, you're smart, and yeah, it's the brain that makes the difference. But actually, I realized that I love people also a lot, and that I got great feedback on how that went. So not only my brain, but also the empathy part and the people part is something that really ticks my boxes. Is that a good
thing? So you're at a point now where you've left Proximus, and you're now at the point of reimagining it all again, like, you know, which is it seems to be a very common thing at the moment, especially speaking to people and through the This Is HCD network, where people are reimagining what they're going to do for the next decade or beyond, or the next parts of their lives. What does that look like for you? What have you landed on, and what was the journey like of coming out of a pretty corporate world? Tell me what that was like.
Gerry, I can recommend to everyone, if you have the time to do it. It was an amazing journey. The first phase was like just taking rest. Sorry? Euphoria?
Euphoria.
Freedom. No, it was really realizing how hard you work and at what pace we live. I guess everyone knows it, right? And it was really like I felt exhausted. Doing nothing is something we are not used to do. And it's nerve-wracking even in the beginning to like learn to do nothing and taking real actual rest, because that's really important to like land on your feet and like become yourself again and not just someone that works. And then the second phase for me was like the acknowledgement of, oh my God, my job really overly defines who I am. Because if you don't work anymore, it's like, what is still my worth and what am I doing here?
Your purpose.
Your
self-worth.
Yes. And I'm like, it could be healthier, the balance, but bon, that's fine. We left it at that. And then, it's amazing to just go back to basics and feel what's happening to you, I would say. And then I really put a focus on, finding that back, who you are as a person, and acknowledging that loving your work, it's fine, but it has to be the combination of, I had a discussion with someone. Is it okay to love to work and to let it define you? I'm still thinking about that one, still don't have a clear answer, but for the moment I think it does. But then I went back to basics on who am I and what do I love? And everyone needs to have a purpose, right? And I was like, what's your purpose? Where do you still want to go? And I started to do some crazy stuff also. Like, I have a good life, and I had this urge more and more. I turned 40 over a year ago, of wanting to give back to the world. And I also have a big creative side that I realized that after 16 years in corporate life was really totally asleep. And I started chasing a dream of becoming a clinic clown. I don't know if you know what that is. There's an organization in Belgium called Clinic Clowns, and they send professional clowns into hospitals towards sick children that are really sick for a long time, to give them a nice time and help them in their suffering, or just lighten up their day in their long stay in the hospital.
That's super cool.
Found out that it's not just about, people ask them, what do? You blow up balloons and you put funny faces? Is that what you do then? But you you can get certified as a clown, Gerry. I didn't know that. And I started looking for courses to do that. So to really there are courses to learn about the art of clowning. And it's not about blowing balloons, but it's about getting into the character of a clown, daring to do stuff that you cannot do as an adult, and then learning. It's pure improvisation. It's like theater. And it really helped me to reconnect with my creative side, which is really, really super nice. Mm-hmm. And the course is still till end of year. And if I get certified, I hope to keep on doing it.
That's brilliant.
To not only work, but also activate that creative side that you also need as a human and as a professional. And that was really
as a
very
facilitator as well, because it is a facilitation exercise in what you're doing in front of a small stage of one in a bed in a difficult surrounds.
Totally. And then talking about design and what we talked earlier, it's like, for me, it's really, people say, oh, you're too passionate about design, but actually it's everywhere. The empathy.
Yeah.
Clowning is also that. You go into the room and you look at the situation and the patient, and you just adapt in function of what that context is at that certain
absolutely point. It's a human-centered design project.
Totally.
Each piece,
so I'm like,
you're designing an experience.
Totally.
It's amazing.
So that I've been doing. I've been raising a puppy, and then now, okay, it's totally clear, I guess, also for people listening, that design is my passion. It fits my personality, and I want to keep on that. I have determined I also took the liberty to reach out to people I didn't know. LinkedIn is a great medium to do that. That's also how we met, right, Gerry?
Yeah.
Talk about your ideas you have, and also as a designer, improve them, and test the truth that you think they have and hold, and then I'm crafting my next steps in what I want to do. And I think I want to keep on helping companies introducing really pragmatically user-centric design. But as I've only seen one company, I have this urge to learn and further deepen my craft, explore, go and see different companies, their challenges, and keep on deepening the skills I have and the assumptions I have. And in the end, maybe even because the Belgian design market is not as mature as the UK one or the American one. It's really still growing.
Or the Australian one.
There's really the willingness to get more user-centric, but there's an absence of skill also in the market. If you want to recruit people or find good designers, it's really, really difficult. So if one day I could even contribute to good schooling leveling up the level of design schooling in Belgium, that would be the cherry on the cake at the end of my career or something.
It's funny, on the whole kind of Flemish and the Belgian and the UK and the design maturity piece, whenever I speak to people in Australia, and I speak to quite a lot of clients over there, they have an assumption that everything over in Europe is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, really?
When I speak to people in America, they look at people in the UK and Central Europe and stuff, and they kind of go, oh, they've got it. And I've just come to learn that, different pockets of maturity in certain cities and states are really good, but there is opportunities out there. It's just really trying to find them. It's quite difficult no matter where you are. But as a side point, Australia is actually quite, in my mind, further ahead than they give themselves credit for. So if people are looking to get in touch with you, because hopefully this podcast opens up some conversations maybe on LinkedIn or Twitter or wherever it is you find yourself hanging out when you're having a coffee, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you, Emely?
Yeah, via LinkedIn, you can just drop me a request for connection. My email is also mentioned in my profile, so I'm very reachable. My name is Emely Buyck. Pronounce it again, Gerry. You did it so wonderfully.
Emely Buyck.
Very good.
I got it right, you see. Well, I'll put a link to both of those into the show notes. And again, thanks for your time and energy and sharing the story of embedding service design into a large organization, because I know people out there who are going through it, they really value these kind of case studies on the difficulties so they can get some own insights on how to do it.
Yeah, I could talk about hours on how we did it, because we talked now a bit about the journey, but then, we really went deep in how you can do it qualitatively and personalized for your company, because I think there's no one size fits all. I had great partners and consultants that helped me. I didn't do it alone. And voila, you have to personalize your process. So I can talk about hours about that also.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Emely. Take care.
Thank you, Gerry. Bye-bye.
So there you have it. That's all for this episode of Bringing Design Closer. If you like this episode, feel free to visit thisishcd.com, where you can access our back catalogue of over 100 episodes, with episodes related to service design, product management, design research, and much, much more. Now, if you're interested in design and innovation training, feel free to check out our business, thisisdoing.com, where you can join online classrooms and learn from the world's best design and innovation leaders. Join the This Is HCD newsletter where you'll receive updates from the network, and also if you're interested, apply to join the Slack community on thisishcd.com. Stay safe, and until next time, take care.